I think 2026 is going to be a great year for Bitcoin, but I think that you shouldn't be roped into trying to forecast what is the price in 90 days or the price in 180 days. It's kind of like saying, well, 6% of the factories in Detroit have electricity. Well, what percentage of the factories will have electricity in 12 months? Well, you're wrong, and therefore electricity is awful.
Michael Saylor just confirmed it. He's super bullish on Bitcoin in 2026. But here's the real question. Could Bitcoin hit a new all-time high before the end of Q1 2026? This bull thesis lands at one of the most high-impact macro inflection points in crypto history. The White House just confirmed that President Trump wants to remove taxes on Bitcoin and crypto transactions, a move that could slash barriers for retail and institutional capital. If that policy passes, capital that was previously sidelined due to tax friction could flood into Bitcoin at unprecedented scale. But that's not all. U.S. banks are no longer watching from the sidelines. Wells Fargo has publicly disclosed buying Bitcoin, positioning it directly on client balance sheets. Meanwhile, BNY Mellon launched tokenized deposits that allow users to transfer Bitcoin and crypto on-chain, effectively blending traditional finance with decentralized rails. That's institutional adoption evolving in real time. Saylor's bullish stance in the interview wasn't vague. He tied it to real structural demand. He points to Bitcoin's fixed supply, growing macro demand from corporations and sovereign entities, accelerated on-chain adoption, and now a potential favorable tax regime. When policy tailwinds plus institutional infrastructure plus market demand align, price discovery accelerates. Combine that with reduced selling pressure for miners and stronger long-term holding behavior, and the odds of a fresh Bitcoin all-time high before Q1 2026 rise dramatically. This isn't speculation. This is structural market reality. Stay locked in. We're breaking down exactly what Saylor said, what it means for price action, and how you should position yourself in this cycle.
Look, I think that trying to guess where the market goes over a 100-day time frame is a fool's errand. Like I literally just said 95 days ago, we were at an all-time high and you're complaining about Bitcoin price action. Like, we have the attention, of sixth graders. Not even sixth graders.
It's not complaining, it's
Name
more
one
I'm surprised.
thing in your life you accomplished in less than 100 days. Like you can't, you're supposed to you can't have a baby in less than 100 days. You can't get a college degree in less than 100 days. How many companies were started and declared successful in less than 100 days? Was what Bitcoin did made successful in 94 days,
Absolutely
right?
not.
I mean, if you actually did a test on every single human endeavor for the last 100,000 years, and you said, well, I'm going to cancel them all if they weren't successful on the 93rd day. First of all, nothing and none of us would be here, right? So I think it's a mistake to fixate on short frequency events. The whole message of Bitcoin is you're supposed to have a low time preference. So I think that if you're an investor, if you're buying a company, if you're investing in a company, expecting it to be successful in less than 4 years just marks you as naive. Like, name a venture capitalist that would say that if the company that I invested in isn't a screaming success in less than 4 years, that I'm just going to sell my investment.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. So if you're an investor, you need a 4-year time frame. But if you're a progressive, if you're an ideologue, okay, so you got up and you decided that you wanted to change the world by spreading an ideology, you probably need a 10-year time frame. So if we go back and ask, well, how long did it take Gandhi to get where he wanted? I mean, look at the history of every ideological movement, for the last 10,000 years. Normally, people that are deemed to be committed to something have a 10-year time frame. And if you did something by the way, the world's full of people that spent 10 years working on something and they still weren't successful. It took them another 10 or 20 years. But I think that if you if your goal is to see Bitcoin commercialized, you really shouldn't be analyzing, or you shouldn't be assessing your success with a frequency of 10 weeks or even 10 months. So I mean, what does it matter what happens in 2026 with the price, right? Do you know, take electricity. You know how long it took to go from 4% of factories running on electricity to 75%
No idea.
of factories? 30 years. Okay, so if you're an electricity maxi and you think that, by the way, electricity is probably the single greatest development of our lifetime. Take away electricity, all the cities die, you know, Florida becomes uninhabitable. Hospitals don't work, refrigeration doesn't work, half the planet dies. And so I give you the gift of clean, invisible, efficient energy that revolutionizes the world, and it still takes 30 years before 70% of the people agree with you. Okay, so Bitcoin is digital energy, it's digital capital, it's the basis of digital credit, it's the basis of digital money. It's developing very rapidly. We're making great inroads. You know, you're like, well, the 4-year cycle is dead. Well, the irony is the people that are saying that haven't waited 4 years. Like, we've only been 95 days since the peak of the cycle. Okay? So how about, I think that if you actually assess Bitcoin's performance on a rolling 4-year moving average, you see a progression that looks pretty bullish. I mean, I think the greatest and most amazing thing of our lifetime, Danny, is probably the most profound technology invention of the 20th century was nuclear power. Like, here's a reactor, it generates a gigawatt of energy, and it does it without any obvious emissions. It's like unlimited clean energy. And that was a gift to humanity. And in 1973, we turned it all off. Like in 1973, the United States decided that they were afraid of nuclear power.
Which is totally insane. It's one of the safest as well.
Well, we can't really trace a death in the United States to nuclear power, but we can trace hundreds of thousands of deaths a year to coal or to fossil fuels or to pollution. And the same people that turned off nuclear power, they embraced wood-burning stoves and coal and every type of fossil fuel, and they embraced wars in the Middle East, and they embraced, you know, every alternative, everything imaginable, rather than turn on unlimited free clean energy, because a successful marketing campaign convinced them that it was scary and dangerous. We literally saw millions, if not tens of millions of people die in wars fighting over alternatives to nuclear energy, and we saw tens of millions of people die of pollution from alternatives to nuclear energy. And then the population of Germany turns off all their, you know, nuclear power plants.
I think The Simpsons scared everyone.
Yeah, and so I think you have to reason from first principles, and I guess my message is people all of a sudden discovered that nuclear power plants aren't a bad idea when they needed unlimited electricity for AI.
Yep.
And all of a sudden it just flipped after 50 years of skepticism. We flipped to, oh, nuclear's cool again. Because when Apple and Google and Meta and, you know, Facebook and Amazon needed nuclear and OpenAI needed nuclear, like, okay, I guess we like it now. It literally was like overnight. If you were to trace that debate, we went from 50 years of skepticism and cynicism to massive enthusiasm because people realized that they needed electricity and they needed a lot of electricity. And so if humanity can fight through 50 years of nuclear skepticism to come out of that, then I think that 94 days of Bitcoin skepticism is not something that we ought to be that skeptical about. I mean, the bottom line is after 10 years of not doing nuclear, right? The nuclear power plant had the nuclear winter, right? The nuclear bear market went from 1973 to 2023. It's 50 years. That was the bear market. And I can tell you from firsthand knowledge, I remember talking to a bunch of power companies in 2021, just after the lockdowns, during the COVID crisis, and energy usage sagged. They were literally all in the process of decommissioning all the nuclear power plants they operated. Half the nuclear power plants in the US, the people wanted to decommission them. They were going to decommission the Diablo Canyon power plant in California. They were all bragging about it, like, oh, we don't need these things. And that was literally 4 years ago.
That's crazy.
And then in like 2023, we had the ChatGPT moment. And then at some point, political sentiment flipped and electricity became cool again and power usage became, remember how the ESG movement?
It disappeared very quickly. Yeah.
It was like, remember when there was the big ESG attack on Bitcoin, like Bitcoin can't use electricity or else that's the end. And I think we all kind of got saved by ChatGPT, because once we realized that the hyperscalers were going to use 10 times as much energy as the Bitcoin industry, it became a rounding error.
It was suddenly okay.
And people decided maybe electricity was cool again and power was cool again. So I think you got to think for yourself, and you got to think from first principles. And first principles suggest that that unlimited clean energy, from a nuclear reactor is a good idea when the alternative is burning wood or burning whatever. And I think first principles suggest that digital intelligence is good. All you got to do is go and use these things, and they work, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, I want that. Like, everybody wants that, right? If you use AI, everybody wants that. And then I think, do I want to be able to move money at the speed of light and store it forever in cyberspace? Of course I do. Of course I do. So has my conviction been swayed by 94 days of not hitting an all-time high? No, I'm going to go on the record and say that I have an endurance of more than 94 days.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a joke, right? Because there's no educated person that didn't go to school for 16 years.
94 days is not a lot.
94 days is not a lot of time to carry the flag. And so if I have to do it for 1,094 days, I could do that too, right? That would still be less time than it took me to get through MIT and get an undergraduate degree. And by the way, after 4 years at MIT, an undergraduate degree, you're still not deemed to be educated by polite society. Most sophisticated society, they would say, well, you need a master's degree to be a competent practitioner at the top of your field. So their position is 12 years of secondary school, 4 years of undergraduate, 2 years of graduate, and now you're ready to be a productive member of society. So that's 18 years, Danny. Bitcoin's 17 years old. And, we just had our 17th birthday on January 3rd. And so Bitcoin, after 17 years, is more than a $2 trillion asset. And it's been embraced by hundreds of publicly traded companies and hundreds of millions of people. And it's been almost 100 days since our last all-time high. I think I'm feeling pretty bullish, and I'm pretty happy about where we are. If you gave me a choice, if you said, Mike, you can either have Bitcoin 150,000, but I'm going to roll back the banking acceptance, the options acceptance, the positive regulators at the CFTC, the SEC, or Treasury, or I'm going to roll back. In fact, if you said, I'll give you 150,000, but you have to pick one of these things to roll back. You have to give up the CAMT win, or you have to give up the FASB win, or you have to give up the support of the Treasury, or you have to give up the support of the SEC, or give up the support of the CFTC, or you have to give up the support of the banking community for IBIT, or you have to give up the fact that Citi and Schwab are moving to trade and custody Bitcoin. If I had to give up just one of those things in return for an all-time high, the answer is I would give up the all-time high. Right? It's like, and this is kind of like adult-like behavior. I would give up immediate gratification for the next 90 days in order to get the support of the multi-trillion-dollar banking industry or the most powerful regulator in the world, or maybe the ability to make money or to be deemed as profitable. So I don't think there's any question in my mind. The industry is evolving the right way. The network is evolving the right way. And the last 90 days are just an opportunity for, someone that's got clear eyes to buy more Bitcoin.